The Old West is often depicted as a land where cowboys reigned supreme and conflicts were settled at the end of a gun barrel. Westerns are filled with fast-drawing protagonists, morally ambiguous anti-heroes, and cold-blooded villains, making them central to the genre in films, TV shows, and even video games. Yet among the crowd of outlaws and justice-seeking cowboys, a few characters manage to rise above the rest. Imagine a showdown in a forgotten border town, where some of the most iconic fictional gunslingers face off. Would the enigmatic man with no name, always with a cigar between his teeth, outdraw the gruff, one-eyed U.S. Marshal Rooster Cogburn? Both characters are known for their quick reflexes and fearless attitudes, but each brings a unique set of skills to the table. Consider Doc Holliday, a real historical figure, but heavily fictionalized in Western stories like Tombstone. Could he outmatch someone like Raylan Givens, a modern lawman rooted in Western tradition? And what about Malcolm Reynolds, the space cowboy from Firefly? How would he fare against a fictional version of the infamous Sundance Kid? By exploring the weapons they prefer, their most famous victories, and their biggest vulnerabilities, we can assess who might survive this imaginary free-for-all. In the end, only one gunslinger, man or woman, would be left standing in the dusty streets of the Wild West. The Man with No Name, Dollars Trilogy, preferred weapon, the Colt Single-Action Army Revolver. Notable victory, in A Fistful of Dollars, Clint Eastwood's iconic character, often called the Man with No Name, or simply the Stranger, returns to confront Ramon Rojo, the merciless leader of a dangerous gang. Secretly donning a steel plate beneath his poncho, the Stranger provokes Ramon into firing at him, knowing the bullets will ricochet off the hidden armor. Once Ramon empties his revolver in frustration, the Stranger reveals his trick, quickly disarming Ramon with a well-placed shot. Without hesitation, he takes down 4 of Ramon's henchmen in the blink of an eye. In a final challenge, the Stranger and Ramon face off to see who can reload their revolver first. The Stranger wins by a split second, bringing an end to Ramon's reign of terror. Weaknesses. Though his skill with a revolver is undeniable, the Man with No Name doesn't always think through his plans completely. The steel plate under his poncho was clever and created one of the most memorable moments in Western cinema, even inspiring a scene in Back to the Future the Third. However, Ramon's accurate shooting could have easily targeted the Stranger's exposed head, turning the tables entirely. This reliance on luck seems to be a recurring theme with the Man with No Name, as he often finds himself narrowly escaping danger. Doc Holliday, Tombstone, 1993. Preferred weapon, the Colt Single-Action Army, Quick Draw Model. Notable victory, while many might point to the famous gunfight at the OK Corral as proof of Doc Holliday's, played by Val Kilmer, gunslinging abilities, that particular shootout was chaotic and far from a clean display of skill. Doc's true expertise with a revolver shines in his duel against Johnny Ringo, portrayed by Michael Biehn. Despite being in the advanced stages of tuberculosis, Holliday outdraws the deadly accurate Ringo and delivers a fatal shot, proving that even his illness couldn't dull his reflexes when it mattered most. Weaknesses. Tuberculosis was his greatest obstacle. Even before the disease claimed his life, Holliday suffered from frequent fainting spells, weakness, and bouts of violent coughing. However, as Johnny Ringo discovered, none of these symptoms were enough to slow down his draw when it came to a life-or-death showdown. William Munny, Unforgiven, 1992. Preferred weapons. Munny, portrayed by Clint Eastwood, is a resourceful gunslinger who uses whatever weapons are available to him. His typical arsenal includes a Smith & Wesson Schofield Model 3 revolver, a W. Richards 10-gauge double-barreled shotgun, and a Spencer 1860 saddle ring carbine rifle. Munny's pragmatism extends to using weapons once owned by his companions. In the final showdown, he wields both Ned Logan's rifle, played by Morgan Freeman, and the Schofield Kid's revolver, played by James Woolvett. Notable victory. In Big Whiskey, Wyoming, Munny arrives at the saloon to seek revenge for the murder of his friend Ned Logan. He faces off against a posse assembled by Sheriff Little Bill Daggett, played by Gene Hackman. Before the real fight begins, Munny coldly dispatches the saloon owner, setting the stage for his confrontation with Little Bill. When his shotgun misfires, Munny doesn't hesitate. He throws the weapon at his enemies and switches to his revolver, swiftly eliminating the posse members. With Little Bill injured, Munny grabs Ned's rifle from the sheriff and delivers the fatal shot, uttering the iconic line, "Deserves got nothing to do with it." Weaknesses. By this point in his life, Munny, who had supposedly reformed under the influence of his late wife, is hesitant to engage in violent acts outside the law. His skills have noticeably declined, and he struggles to regain his old form. However, once his anger is stirred and he shakes off the rust, Munny proves himself to be a deadly marksman, showing no hesitation or remorse when it comes to pulling the trigger. Wyatt Earp, Tombstone, Tishens Jevenset Jevenjishantra. Preferred weapons? Wyatt Earp, portrayed by Kurt Russell in Tombstone, is most associated with a Colt Buntline special revolver and a Stevens 10-gauge double-barrel shotgun. While Earp's name is forever tied to the gunfight at the OK Corral, his greatest moment in the film occurs later, during his relentless vendetta against the cowboy gang. The film's most defining victory for Earp takes place in Iron Springs, Arizona, where he confronts the notorious Curly Bill Brocious, played by Powers Booth. Pinned down by Curly Bill and his gang near the creek, Earp, along with Doc Holliday, Val Kilmer, and their allies, face a seemingly hopeless situation. Pushed beyond his limit, Earp steps into the creek, walking directly into a hail of bullets. With a steely resolve, he simply declares, "No!" over and over, marching forward through the water as the cowboys fire at him, and miraculously miss. Before Curly Bill can react, Earp delivers a final shout of, "No!" and fires both barrels of his shotgun straight into Bill's chest, ending the outlaw's reign. Weaknesses. Earp's approach to this encounter reveals much about his character. He isn't a tactical genius, far from it. His reckless decision to march into gunfire without a solid plan somehow works by sheer force of will. This same lack of strategy is evident in the OK Corral gunfight, where Earp, his brothers, and Doc Holliday enter the fray with little preparation. Rather than carefully planning the confrontation, they end up in a chaotic firefight that could have been avoided. Earp is the type of lawman who charges in first and deals with the consequences later, relying on sheer determination and luck rather than careful planning. Rooster Cogburn, True Grit. Rooster Cogburn, played by John Wayne in True Grit, 1969, favors a Colt single-action Army quick-draw revolver and a Winchester 1892 saddle ring carbine. These reliable firearms suit his rough-and-ready approach as an aging U.S. Marshal. Notable victory. The climax of True Grit sees Rooster Cogburn finally track down Lucky Ned Pepper, portrayed by Robert Duvall, along with 3 of his men. Faced with the choice of fighting to the death or surrendering to be hanged, Pepper taunts Cogburn. Without hesitation, Rooster charges straight at the younger outlaws, gripping the reins of his horse in his teeth while firing both his revolver and rifle simultaneously. Galloping at full speed, he manages to take on the entire group in a thrilling and reckless display of courage. Weaknesses. While Cogburn embodies the spirit of determination and toughness, he is far from invincible. Blind in one eye, well beyond his prime, overweight, and a heavy drinker, Rooster is a man whose body has clearly seen better days. Yet it's precisely these weaknesses that fuel his strength. He shows a total disregard for his own life, using his fading health and indifference to death as weapons in their own right. Chris Adams, The Magnificent Seven, 1960. Chris Adams, portrayed by Yul Brynner in The Magnificent Seven, uses a Colt single-action Army revolver, a fitting choice for his gunslinger style and leadership role among his band of vigilantes. Adams takes on the role of leader when he agrees to defend a small village from the ruthless bandit Calvera, played by Eli Wallach. Along with a handful of fellow gunslingers, Adams confronts Calvera's gang, enduring heavy losses as some of his comrades fall in the fight. In the climactic moment, Adams manages to gain the upper hand and shoots Calvera, delivering a fatal barrage of bullets. As Calvera lies dying, he asks Adams a haunting question. You came back to a place like this? Why? A man like you? Why? Adams, rather than respond, leaves Calvera to die without ever receiving an answer. Adams's decision to defend the village stems from a deep sense of guilt over his past. This internal sorrow drives him to take on seemingly impossible odds, choosing to fight for redemption. While his choice leads to victory, it comes at a great cost, as most of his companions perish along the way. Adams's relentless pursuit of redemption proves to be both his strength and his downfall. Harmonica, Once Upon a Time in the West. Harmonica, played by Charles Bronson in Once Upon a Time in the West, wields a Colt single-action army revolver. This iconic gun complements his silent and brooding persona, making him a formidable presence in the world of Westerns. Harmonica's most emotionally significant triumph comes when he finally confronts his nemesis, Frank, to settle old scores. However, it's the showdown at the train station that cements Harmonica as a deadly force. In the film's opening sequence, he faces off against 3 hired guns, led by the smug Snakey. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, Harmonica dispatches all 3 men with lightning speed. Before the bullets fly, however, the scene delivers one of the most memorable exchanges in Western cinema. Snakey, eyeing their 3 horses, sneers. "Looks like we're shy 1 horse." Harmonica, calm and cold, replies, "You brought 2 too many." His chilling words and unflinching gaze drain the bravado from the men, setting the stage for their quick demise. Weaknesses. Harmonica's single-minded obsession with revenge often leads him to take dangerous risks. His pursuit of vengeance leaves little room for self-preservation, making him vulnerable. Additionally, he has the peculiar habit of announcing his presence by playing a haunting tune on his harmonica, giving away his location before a fight, a trait that, under normal circumstances, would hinder a more stealthy approach. En Mariachi, Desperado, 1995. El Mariachi, played by Antonio Banderas, favors a pair of silver Ruger KP 90 pistols, which add a modern flair to his gunslinger persona. These sleek weapons are his tools of choice in his quest for vengeance. Notable victory. One of El Mariachi's most iconic moments unfolds when he enters the Tarasco bar, seeking his archenemy. The tension is palpable as the Cantina's thugs, already suspicious of him, prepare for a fight. What follows is an unforgettable action sequence. El Mariachi draws his twin pistols, unleashing a chaotic and cinematic shootout. With remarkable agility, he uses not just his pistols, but a variety of hidden weapons concealed in his guitar case to dispatch every man in the bar. It's an elaborate, over-the-top gunfight that becomes a central scene in the film. Weaknesses. El Mariachi's overwhelming drive for revenge, spurred by the murder of his lover, is both his strength and his weakness. His all-consuming need for vengeance often clouds his judgment, making him vulnerable to emotional manipulation. This intense focus on retribution, typical of many anti-heroes, leads him to take reckless risks that could easily be exploited by his enemies. Angel Eyes, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Angel Eyes, portrayed by Lee Van Cleef in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, wields a Colt Navy 1851 revolver and a Remington 1858 New Army model. These firearms enhance his menacing presence, fitting for a character known for his ruthless demeanor. Notable victory, known as the Bad in the film's title, Angel Eyes epitomizes cruelty and greed. His character is introduced when he brutally interrogates a man named Stevens, demanding information about a cache of missing Confederate gold. Aware that he's marked for death by Baker, Stevens tries to negotiate his way out of danger by offering Angel Eyes a sum to kill Baker instead. Without hesitation, Angel Eyes accepts the deal and swiftly murders Stevens to fulfill his original contract. He then approaches the defenseless Baker, who lies asleep in his home. After revealing Stevens' information, Angel Eyes coldly shoots Baker while laughing, showcasing his sadistic nature. This act of betrayal is a chilling demonstration of his character, emphasizing his role as a villain rather than a traditional gunslinger. Angel Eyes is primarily motivated by greed, lacking the strong convictions that drive more principled characters in the Wild West. Unlike heroes who fight for noble causes, His actions stem from self-interest. Additionally, his age makes him slightly slower on the draw, which can be a disadvantage in the fast-paced confrontations typical of the genre. This combination of greed and diminishing reflexes reveals his vulnerabilities, making him a tragic figure despite his brutal nature. Ben Wade, 310 to Yuma. The character Ben Wade, played by Russell Crowe, wields a Colt single-action Army revolver, uniquely customized with a grip featuring a golden cross. This weapon is ominously referred to as the Hand of God and is rumored to carry a curse. Anyone who touches it, except for Wade himself, is doomed to die. Notable victory. As the narrative unfolds, Wade develops a reluctant respect for Dan Evans, portrayed by Christian Bale. In a surprising turn, Wade chooses to betray his own gang to ensure that Evans can deliver him to the train on schedule, allowing Evans to claim a reward to support his family. The two men fight their way through a town teeming with thugs to reach the train, but Evans is soon overpowered by Wade's loyal right-hand man, Charlie Prince, played by Ben Foster. In a shocking moment fueled by guilt and resentment, Wade suddenly turns against Prince, offering nothing more than a cold stare as a warning. He swiftly shoots Prince before the latter can even reach for his weapon, dispatching all 5 of his henchmen with ruthless efficiency. To seal Prince's fate, Wade approaches him, retrieves his gun from the holster, and delivers the fatal shot with Prince's own firearm. Despite his formidable skills, Wade's temperament often leads to reckless outbursts. A prime example occurs when he executes Byron McElroy after the latter insults Wade's mother while being escorted to the train. In a chilling moment, Wade whispers to McElroy before casting him off a cliff, "Even bad men love their mamas." This impulsive behavior reveals a vulnerability in Wade's character, as his emotions can cloud his judgment and lead to unnecessary violence, highlighting the complexity of his persona as both a villain and a man burdened by his past. The Sundance Kid, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, 1969. The Sundance Kid, portrayed by Robert Redford, wields a Colt single-action Army revolver, a favored firearm of many legendary gunslingers in the American West. While Sundance is celebrated as one of the most feared and skilled quick-draw shooters of his time, his most remarkable demonstration of talent occurs early in the film during a tense poker game that nearly escalates into violence. When another player, hesitating to accuse Sundance of cheating, inquires about his skills, Sundance responds without a word. He swiftly draws his revolver and, with astonishing precision, shoots the man's holster from his waist before knocking the player's gun across the floor. This scene not only showcases Sundance's sharpshooting ability, but also sets the tone for his character as a confident and formidable presence in the Wild West. Despite his impressive shooting skills, Sundance lacks strategic thinking and prefers direct confrontation over retreat, even as he evades a posse determined to capture him. His bravado often overshadows his better judgment. Additionally, he harbors a significant fear of drowning, unable to swim, a vulnerability that highlights the human side of this otherwise legendary outlaw. This fear serves as a reminder that even the most formidable figures of the Old West have their limitations, making Sundance a more relatable character amidst his exploits. Django Unchained. Django, played by Jamie Foxx, wields 2 iconic revolvers, the Colt 1851 Navy and the Remington 1858 New Army. Both firearms are emblematic of the era, known for their reliability and effectiveness in skilled hands. Signature victory. Following a violent rampage through Candyland, Django returns to the plantation, driven by a fierce desire for revenge and a determination to rescue his wife, Broomhilda, portrayed by Kerry Washington. In a dramatic confrontation, he battles through Billy Crash, played by Walton Goggins, and several henchmen, demonstrating his sharpshooting prowess. Django doesn't stop there. He takes decisive action by kneecapping Stephen, Samuel L. Jackson's character, and uses dynamite to obliterate the mansion, marking a climactic moment in his quest for justice and liberation. Weaknesses. Although Django's motivations stem from a deep love for his wife and a burning desire for vengeance, these same emotions can cloud his judgment. His impulsive nature sometimes leads him to act without fully considering the potential repercussions of his actions, which can place him in precarious situations. Malcolm Reynolds, Firefly. The firearm of choice for Malcolm Reynolds, played by Nathan Fillion, is the Moses Brothers self-defense engine Frontier Model B. This handgun reflects the rugged and lawless nature of the world he inhabits. The pilot episode of the cult classic series Firefly establishes the show as a unique blend of science fiction and Western elements, evident in its themes and stylistic choices. By the end of this introduction, we gain insight into the character of Malcolm Reynolds. During a job, a government agent disguised as a passenger takes another traveler hostage at gunpoint. Upon his return, Mal strides in confidently, displaying no overt concern. With a calm demeanor, he swiftly draws his weapon and neutralizes the threat, showcasing his skill and fearlessness. While this moment may not be his most intense confrontation, it effectively underscores his character's bravado, setting the tone for his actions throughout the series. Mal's unwavering loyalty to his crew can sometimes be his Achilles heel, making him susceptible to manipulation. He adheres to a personal code that states, if someone tries to end you, you try and end them right back. Mal's journey reflects the broader struggle between loyalty and survival, a central theme in many Western narratives. Frank, Once Upon a Time in the West. The weapon of choice for Frank, portrayed by Henry Fonda, is the Colt single-action army revolver with a nickel finish. This iconic firearm reflects his cold, calculated nature and his role as a ruthless antagonist in the film. Signature victory. Frank stands out as one of the most malevolent villains in cinematic history, embodying the archetype of the psychopathic killer within the realm of Western films. In the opening sequence of Once Upon a Time in the West, Frank is commissioned by a railroad magnate to intimidate Brett McBain, played by Frank Wolf, into vacating his property, allowing the tycoon to purchase and exploit the land. However, Frank diverges from his initial directive, brutally murdering McBain and subsequently executing his 3 young children, showcasing his utter lack of compassion. This shocking introduction establishes Frank's heartlessness and sets the tone for his character throughout the film. Weaknesses. Frank's actions are motivated by an insatiable greed and a desperate need for respect, which ultimately leads to his downfall. Feeling betrayed, he turns against the very railroad tycoon who hired him, demonstrating his volatile nature. This need for validation also makes it difficult for him to maintain the loyalty of his gang, as they abandon him in favor of more lucrative offers. Such traits underline the theme of betrayal that runs throughout the film, echoing the dynamics seen in many Western narratives where trust is as fleeting as life itself. Buster Scruggs, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. Buster, played by Tim Blake Nelson, wields the Colt 1873 single-action army revolver, a classic firearm emblematic of the Old West. This weapon underscores his skill and reputation as a sharpshooter. Buster showcases his extraordinary marksmanship and reflexes in various confrontations, notably clearing out a cantina filled with hostile bandits. He impressively manages to shoot off an opponent's fingers with remarkable speed. However, his most notable achievement occurs without the use of his revolver. Instead, he cleverly manipulates the environment by striking a long table, causing the fearsome Surly Joe, portrayed by Clancy Brown, to accidentally shoot himself multiple times. This moment illustrates Buster's resourcefulness and quick thinking, which he describes as downright Archimedean, highlighting his inventive approach to conflict resolution. Ultimately, Buster's downfall stems from his overconfidence, leading him to accept one challenge too many. This results in a swift defeat at the hands of a young upstart clad in black, Willie Watson. Despite facing death, Buster maintains a philosophical outlook, reflecting on the inevitability of change in status and power. His observation that one cannot remain top dog forever resonates with the transient nature of fame and success in the Wild West, where the balance of power can shift in an instant. The Lady, the Quick and the Dead. Weapon of choice. The Lady wields the EMF Hartford single-action army revolver, a firearm emblematic of the Old West, signifying both power and precision. Ellen, known as the Lady and portrayed by Sharon Stone, achieves her most significant triumph when she exacts revenge on the malevolent John Heron, played by Gene Hackman. However, her journey to respect and notoriety begins in the opening scenes of a quick-draw competition, where she proves herself against the notorious Dog Kelly, portrayed by Tobin Bell. In a remarkable display of skill, she manages to outdraw him by shutting out all distractions and concentrating solely on the task at hand, establishing her reputation as a formidable gunslinger in the town. As the lady becomes increasingly embroiled in her quest for vengeance, the act of killing begins to transform her character in unsettling ways. In a moment of compassion, she decides to spare Eugene Dredd, played by Kevin Conway, after she retaliates against him for attacking a young woman by shooting at his genitals. This act of mercy comes back to haunt her when Dredd later ambushes her in a saloon, forcing her to respond with lethal force. The lady's story serves as a poignant reminder of how the cycle of violence can corrupt even the most principled individuals, leaving a lasting impact on their psyche and choices. Will Kane, High Noon. Will Kane wields the single-action Army artillery revolver, a classic firearm that symbolizes the ruggedness and resolve of the American West. On what is supposed to be his last day as a U.S. Marshal in a small New Mexico Territory town, Will Kane, portrayed by Gary Cooper, ties the knot with Amy Fowler, played by Grace Kelly. Shortly after their wedding, he receives troubling news. Frank Miller, a notorious criminal whom Kane previously incarcerated, has been released from prison and seeks vengeance. The townspeople, gripped by fear, refuse to assist him, forcing Kane to confront Miller and his gang alone. Armed solely with his revolver, he engages in a high-stakes gunfight with Miller's ruthless thugs in the streets, a tense sequence that unfolds in real time. After Kane successfully eliminates Miller's henchmen, the villain resorts to using Amy as a human shield. In a desperate struggle, she fights back, allowing Kane the chance to finally confront and defeat Miller. Kane's unwavering sense of duty drives his actions, pushing him to prioritize his responsibilities over his safety and personal happiness. Despite numerous opportunities to escape the situation with his new wife and her pleas for him to leave, Kane insists on standing his ground. His commitment to honor and justice is so profound that he even prepares his will, convinced that he may not survive the impending confrontation. As the dust settles and the echoes of gunfire fade away, one thing is certain: the legacy of these legendary gunslingers will continue to spark debates and fuel imaginations for generations to come. Who would emerge victorious in a chaotic clash of the West's most notorious characters? Only time and a bit of imagination will tell. If you enjoyed this exploration of fictional firearms and feuds, don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling discussions and dive deeper into the captivating world of the Old West.